Hi, I'm Saint Deadioba, and I'm the architect of Your Day Balance Game, also a coach in it, and this is...
Sarah Bivens, and I'm also a coach in the Your Day Balance game.
And today we're going to talk about this specific thing, which is workaholism, but more specific, this busybody, this busy beaver thing in workaholism, and how it's a clear indicator of codependency, and it shows up in codependent marriages and codependent individuals, and how it can rob you of your health, your mental, emotional, physical health. So stay tuned. So we're talking about codependency and all the symptoms of codependency. And the one I want to talk about that shows up a lot in marriages or relationships or just with yourself generally is workaholism, you know? And that breaks down in different branches as well. And one thing I want to talk about is the busy beaver syndrome, which is part of workaholism, right? It's like you always get around certain people that they're always busy.
Always moving.
Yeah.
Constantly in motion.
Yes.
Don't stop.
Yes.
Don't take a break. Yeah.
And you feel it. Tell us about this thing called moving, this busy beaver syndrome, and what that looks like in general. And then we'll talk about, is that something that impacts your relationship?
Yeah. I could really relate. So we started talking about this, I think, a week ago, and it came up just this natural, organic conversation of that moving around constantly and seeing people we know in our lives do that. And it really impacted me because it made me think about where I'm doing that, and I didn't even realize. So from our last conversation, I actually went home to my house with husband and children with a new awareness and kind of being cognizant of that, and where am I doing that, and where am I staying busy just to stay busy, or potentially missing out on being present, like with my husband or my kids when they're doing certain things. So I could very much relate. And it's those sneaky little things that you don't realize could be a part of a codependent root. And so I really appreciated the eye-opening opportunity with that. And it's really given me a chance to look at it more for myself because I didn't realize when I was doing it at times.
I want to add to that, thank you. I want to add to that codependency has so many different branches. And what we do on this video is just identify the many different branches. So that way, if you see that you have 4, 5, 7, 8 branches, and you know it's coming from the same root, codependency.
Yeah.
Now, what is that, once again, before we get into the details of this particular branch? It's an addiction to taking care of others or working at the cost of your health.
Yeah.
And when we say that, we mean mental, emotional, physical health. And why? Due to moral obligation, due to feeling responsible, feeling like the hero and the shero, or just your values, the way you're raised, where you saw it, what's most important and meaningful to you. Those 3 drivers drive you to this habit that you're getting this seemingly upfront reward, but the price, the cost is starting to stack. And after 10, 15, 20 years of it, you're reaching out to us because you're successfully unsuccessful. You have the kid, the house, the car, but you don't have the experience that you're looking for because you're burnt out.
Right.
You're feeling insecure. You don't even know who you are, and you're feeling a little depressed. All those things are the main pain points. So particularly, we're talking about that busy beaver. That's part of that workaholism.
Yeah.
Tell us how that's played out in your house.
Yeah.
And how we can be aware of it and spot it.
Yeah. So when we were talking about it, I was catching and seeing, kind of the montage, the splice of my own examples of that rush before my eye. And I think about a scenario of doing the dishes, cooking, and like doing laundry simultaneously, all of those things. And then maybe at the end of the day, we're kind of winding down. Matthew, my husband, will be playing with our girls. We have 2 daughters, and I'm in the kitchen, cleaning up or wiping down and doing that thing. And then Matthew, my husband, says, "Hey, love, why don't you come hang out with us? Come be with us. We can take care of that stuff later. We can take care of the dishes." And I think, no, I need to do it now. I need to take care of it now because I don't want to take care of it later. And if I just keep doing it, then all the stuff will get done, right? And everyone will appreciate that. Everyone will benefit from that. You, husband, will benefit from that. So I'm just gonna keep doing the stuff and not realizing that some of the underlying things in there were, I can't stop until I get it all done. Or I haven't earned my break yet until I get it all done. Or when I finally stop and take a shower, I'll feel so much better that it's all done. I won't be thinking about it while I'm in the shower, thinking about the stuff that needs to be done. And it's just all of those mounting reasons and evidence to keep doing it and to keep staying busy. And I think many can relate to that. I think I know lots of women, and it doesn't have to be gender exclusive, right? It doesn't have to be the husband or the wife that's doing it, or the man or the woman, but I know many who operate like that as well.
And everything you said is true.
Yeah.
So if it's true, like, why would you stop? Because you understand how a clean house and happy kids, happy husband, and happy you
Yeah.
works more effectively than a messy house and things are not done and things are not in order. So I don't see what's the big deal.
Yeah.
Want to make sure it all gets done, because when it's all done, everything will be perfect and life will go on and everybody will be happy. Is that how it really works?
Well, the sneaky thing that I realize can come up is if I'm starting to operate in those things to detriment, like you said, to cost of myself,
Yes.
or I'm feeling ragged as I'm doing it, or I'm feeling frustrated, or I'm doing that chest kind of huff breathing as I'm doing it. Oh my gosh, I've done that. And then I've also seen them playing in the other room and thought, I would like to be doing that right now, but this has to get done. This stuff has to get done. And so then there's little seeds of resentment that I'm not even aware, I'm not even consciously seeing that I'm planting, but I am, because I'm thinking I have to get this stuff done and they're off having fun. So in one respect, in one play out of the scenario, there is nothing wrong with the situation, but it does take looking at how am I feeling as I'm doing it? What's the energy I'm bringing to it? What I'm doing right now indicative of? Is it that need? Is it that codependency? Is it that addiction to staying busy and not addressing what actually needs to be addressed? Or am I doing it out of joy? Am I doing it effortlessly? Am I doing it because, yeah, that's their time to play right now and I'm perfectly content doing what I'm doing right now? Or I'm going to drop all of this, go be present, play, because that's what I want to do. And that stuff will get taken care of when it gets taken care of.
I want to go back. Great job. We're going to unpack that.
Yeah. Because there's a lot there.
You gave me a little prelude to it. That was great.
Yeah.
One thing you said is that I say, no, I'm going to take care of the dishes and do this, vacuum the house, do whatever you're doing.
Right.
And there's a slight little resentment because you see them over there playing as a result of the space you're creating.
Right.
But you're over here just laboring and working hard, arduously, and getting it done.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden, that little cut called death by 1,000 cuts. And that's what people don't see about codependency. Codependency doesn't just smack you upside the head like you know what it is. It's so slow. It's like boiling a frog. Most people that come to us are in their 40s and 50s and 60s because they're boiled.
Right.
And so you got to be mindful of all these little pernicious little cuts throughout the day. Correct. And be able to identify it. So that was beautiful that you talked about your specific scenario of being in the kitchen or doing what you're doing and they're over there playing.
Yeah.
What brought that up between you and I is that Shonda and I had a chance to visit her sister and her husband. And we got into a deeper conversation, which often happens between couples. And this might be another form of it playing out in your house. Yeah. And that's when her husband said he came home and he actually works from home. So he actually washed the dishes and washed the clothes and did all these things. And when she came home from a hard day's work, he's like, honey, I washed the dishes, I did the clothes. And her instinct was, do you want a cookie?
Right. Do you want a parade?
Yeah. But you see,
I get
that comes from that overworking because you're like, now welcome to my world.
Yeah.
What do you think I do every day? Of course you did it because if you don't, I do it. So what do you want, a cookie? I don't get a cookie. I do it every day. All that's going on and all you said is, I washed the dishes, I did the clothes. You can't even appreciate it.
Right.
Because you've been grinding so hard in those moments, given that you can't even appreciate the fact he did it.
It's like a trigger and you take it personally. Yeah.
And then he's saying it and then you're thinking he's saying it for a different reason. And this what unfolded in our conversation. She thought he wanted an attaboy, a cookie. And that's not where he was moving from. I was able to explain it to her because I'll say when I do things in the house for Shonda, I'll let her know I did it.
Yeah.
The reason why he said it is because he wanted to let her know that you don't have to put this on your plate.
That's nice.
Now you can go take care of yourself.
Right.
Because if you don't take care of yourself, our relationship doesn't stay connected. You come home, you disconnect, you burn out, the next stress is on your plate, and we don't connect.
Right.
And then either I'm tired, I go to bed, or you go to tired, you're tired, and you go to bed, and we don't connect because it's the next thing. And so if I take a couple of these things off your plate, maybe you'll go take care of yourself. But she can't even fathom that he's thinking like that. She thinks it's an attaboy. And he wants to say, no, take care of yourself. And she's not doing the things she can do to take care of herself because she's taking care of everyone else. So he realizes that because he started really taking care of himself, exercising all those different habits, that if she doesn't do it, they can't have that great relationship. So let's tie it back into your house. So if Matthew does something and he might mention to you like, Sarah, I did this, I did that. Did you ever feel that way, or you have a different approach to it when he does do it now?
That's interesting to think about. Whenever he's shared, I took care of this or I did this, I don't experience that as a give me affirmation or like, look what I did. Like, look, Ma. Like, I don't experience it like that. I very much receive it as a deposit and receive it as just what you said. I did this, so now you have space for whatever you want to do, whatever you want to do with it.
And why do you think you receive it like that? Why do you think you have the ability to receive it like that? Because that right there is juicy.
We both are very intentional about depositing into, investing in, and pouring into ourselves as individual people. So I can feel from him that he did that out of a place of love and as a deposit for me, and that he did it because he chose to and because he chose to do it joyfully. I can trust that from our time together and from the work that we do on ourselves, and then we come collectively to collaborate on. And I trust it's the same with me, that when I share, oh, I did this for you, or I did this, that it's a letting you know, and I did it out of my full choice of myself because my tank was full and I chose to do it. So
what you're saying is, when he shares the great ways he deposits into a relationship, because of the reps you guys had over the last umpteen years, you understand that it's coming from his overflow.
Yes, I do.
And because you are flowing as well, you can take that deposit and multiply it. So now we're kind of segueing into what has to happen in order for those exchanges to truly be synergistic and win-win. So share with us some of the things you might share with your clients. You have a lot of very powerful clients who go through this scenario, who go through this challenge. What are ways that you would say, how do you get that to turn around where they can actually receive the blessing the way you're receiving it?
I think it's a management opportunity. And by that, managing your energy effectively. Because that's what we are most in influence of, is our energy and how we manage it, how we spend it, how we conserve it, all of these things. And it starts there. And
so it's not managing time?
Yeah.
Wow. You said something very, very profound there. You said it's a management of energy as a priority as opposed to management of time.
Right.
Share more.
Well, I think about managing my energy is going to impact a circumstance regardless of the time, regardless of the factor of it. If there's not enough of it, or if there's too much of it, or it's not at the right time that I would ideally prefer, my experience is going to be most impacted by my perspective of the situation. And then that goes back to how I'm managing my energy is going to influence my perspective. And so I just feel like it starts there, and we don't have to get real fancy with it or try different modalities. Like, just come back to the energy management, and that's inside out versus time dictating how I'm going to feel or what I'm going to do. That's outside in. And I've lived life that way. I've very much lived life by time being the dictator of how I feel, how I move, what I do, when I do it. And it's a way. It wasn't my most joyful way. It wasn't the most joyful time, to pun intended, of life. And
I want to go down that path right there. You said, I used to live where time dictated instead of managing energy, managing time.
Yes.
And right now, I bet you there's a lot of people listening who still operate in managing time because they haven't even heard the conversation managing energy. They don't know what it means. They don't know how to do it.
Right.
So back to managing time, where'd you learn that from?
From my environments.
And that became part of your values.
Yes.
So it's naturally part of our values if those around you showed you that. And that ties back to that busy beaver, huh? Always busy, busy. So how did that impact you growing up? How did you operate?
Very much like, well, it got done or it needs to get done. So either does it need to get done or it got done being the parameter, being the barometer of success, not what was your experience of it? Or how did you feel about it? Or even were you present with it? It got done. Check the box. You know, even interpersonal relationship kind of stuff, going and doing the thing, going and having the dinner, going and being with someone. It was done versus really being present, unwrapping the gift that is the present.
Stop. We just came out of the holiday season, unwrapping the gift.
Yeah.
Well said. How many people don't unwrap the gift? Because they don't realize it's a present. And that's because they're not managing the what?
Their energy.
Yeah, beautiful segue. Yeah. So what are some practical habits or actions that you share with your clients to manage their energy? Where do they start with that?
Well, using a tool to help with that management, enter the trust app of the YDBG, a tried and true system that's been operating for thousands of hours with thousands of people inputting their data to not just do the things that pour into ourselves and add to our energy, but measuring that and creating consistency around that. And that can look like pausing and taking 10 deep breaths, going outside and standing in the sunshine for a few minutes, going for a walk, drinking enough water. These simple things that, again, you, like I said earlier, you don't have to get fancy with it. Yeah. Stick to what's simple. Stick to something that has been tested, that you can put your trust in. Because oftentimes I feel like all of that busyness and that those distractions and that scatter comes from not trusting ourselves to sit quiet with our thoughts or to just be present. There's unknown there where the like keep doing stuff, keep getting stuff done. There's known there. It's more familiar. It's more comfortable. If that makes sense.
Well said, yeah. Because if they stop to examine what's driving that, I almost call it like this anxious behavior.
It is.
I feel it. Like when I'm around somebody who just keeps moving, keeps picking up the dishes and keeps going, I don't feel peace. I don't feel calm around them. I feel like they're like, keeps going. I'm like, leave the dishes and just have a seat.
Yeah, it's a bit manic.
I
can relate to it.
Very manic.
Yeah, so I used to, just like this, sitting, I would constantly be like tapping my foot or shaking my leg or just doing something. And that's needing to do something, right? That's needing an action. And the multitasking thing, doing multiple things at once and feeling like we're being really productive when really we're just spreading ourselves out so thin and likely not doing any of those one things well. I can relate to that too.
Yeah. Wow. And you know, so what we're really saying here, Sarah, is that we don't want to take away from the people who get things done and take action.
Right.
Because that's very much a big part of the balance. It's just that if you don't reconcile it and balance it out with the space, the pause, the presence, then it becomes extreme, it becomes manic, and you will swing hard the other way.
Yeah.
So it's like the pendulum. If it swings hard right with the manic, it's going to swing hard left with the depression.
Yeah.
So
in the bed, not getting out of it, don't want to do anything.
That's how they know, because this is what's going to hit them. Like, what are the consequences of that busy work? When you see someone that busy, you can have a 70, 80, 90% shot that this is what's going on in their life. Yeah. What are some of the things that might be going on in a person's life who's always busy?
What could be some things going on? That's a great question. Well, I think there's some things that we avoid. So we're avoiding. So I think there could even be stuff that we haven't even taken the time to understand better. That's why we stack up so much and we keep it so heavy with things. So there's some avoidance going on, some denial, perhaps.
I want to add to that avoidance. Yes, when I see that pattern, 9 times out of 10, you have somebody that's not taking time to reflect on how they're experiencing it. And when you don't reflect on how you're experiencing it, you don't understand yourself. Right. You're just out there doing it, not realizing who you're becoming in the process. Because every time you do something, there's an impact on who you're becoming. And it works both ways. So that's why you see a lot of successful people, they work hard to climb that ladder and they jump off. Yeah. By the time they get to the top and like, I made it to the top of this game, and they realize what's really at the top, which is emptiness, loss of self, all that stuff, because they didn't reflect every step of the way saying, is this aligned with the highest version of the highest vision of myself? Is this aligned with my intuition? Right. Is my soul lit up, expressed? How is this tracking? Is this sustainable? That only happens, like you said, with
Yeah.
the present moment, being present to connecting with yourself as you move through those experiences. So when I see somebody who doesn't pause to connect and reflect, 9 times out of 10, they're not present to who they're becoming and how their emotions are starting to stack up. All that, like you said, the cuts, the resentment stacking up, and then when it hits, you will be running to the doctors. So you need some kind of medication, some kind of solution that you're trying to get them to solve from the outside in, which doesn't have an outside in solution.
Yeah.
What are some of the other examples of things that could be happening as a result of someone who's always busy like that? Hint, hint, relationships, bedroom.
Oh, intimacy. There's no intimacy going on. And so then again, how do we fill the space with things to do to feel a sense of accomplishment, to feel a sense of purpose, to create some sort of fabricated connection?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like you said, the intimacy can't be because into me you see.
Yeah.
So if I'm not pausing and saying, Sarah, how was your day? Who are you becoming today? How did that experience or that action impact you? What were you aware of? That takes time. And someone who's always busy is not capturing those moments and present
isn't
to
looking
it.
At that.
Right. So if I'm not taking time to understand me and understand you, then that's not intimacy.
Yeah.
It's like, but if I pause and I ask, how was your day? And just be with you and learn and understand you, then you're going to feel a lot more connected than if I just take care of everything for you and I don't see how you are impacted by or who you're becoming in that moment.
Yeah.
So yeah, I see a lot of that impact people in those relationships, and that's when they come to us because their first marriage, second marriage is falling apart. But they got a lot of things done. They got the kids, the house, the car.
Right.
And that's what we call successfully unsuccessful.
Yeah. The self-worth isn't in there.
So
the net worth has been built, or overlay it to something like the scenario we've been talking about. If you're doing domestic work or domestic engineering work, pouring everything into that to get that sense of accomplishment, to get that sense of identity, to get that sense of worth.
Codependency.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I take care of this and I do this and I work hard, then everything will shower me with accolades, appreciate it. I'll feel fulfilled, and it doesn't work that way. It does not work that way. It starts off by being your number one investor. So you talked about self-worth.
Yeah.
Step by step, we talked about using a system. You know, you got to have a system to measure that deposit into yourself. One thing I always say is that it starts off by increasing your value. Yeah. You've got to raise your value. And the way we raise value is by making healthy deposits, whether it's into this relationship or into ourselves. If we make those healthy deposits, we raise the value of it, the value of myself or the value of this relationship. My question for you is, that's how you raise value. How do you build trust?
Measuring it. Where that which is measured can be improved. Let's see data. Let's see patterns. Let's see what it looks like, just like we would do with our finances.
And when you measure it consistently, we call it consistent measurement, then now you have this objective way of looking at what you're really creating.
Yeah. I like it because it takes the guesswork out of it, and I can trust the data. I can trust the feedback that's coming from the data. And then I can examine how I feel within it, but I'm not allowing how I feel to drive it. Because that's going to go up and down. And data is going to be a little bit more objective and consistent.
I was talking to one of our clients recently, and I said, listen, at every moment, you got to ground what you're doing or how you're feeling in reality. And the way you ground it to see if it's really actualizing is 3 things. You got to be able to read your energy and feel your body and trust your intuition. That's the first thing. Do you feel it? But when you don't slow down to connect, it's hard to know that what you're really feeling. But that takes a lot of reps to connect. So give me an example before I talk about the second thing, because I said it's 3 things. But before I go into the second thing, give me an example of how you connect with Sarah throughout the week. That's allowed you to understand yourself at this level.
Yeah. Meditation and journaling have been great. So I feel like meditation is that quieting of the mind, the slowing down the thoughts so that I can be present, getting connected with my breath. And then the journaling allows for that kind of release of thought, that stream of consciousness. Sometimes it's a detox and get it out. And then sometimes it's a tinkering and working with everything that's going on in here. So those two are really great for self-reflection and self-actualization.
Wow, beautiful. The second step we always say is have some kind of measurable data, but you got to be consistently accounting and measuring it to get that measurable data. So how do you go about having measurable data on the power of Sarah?
I have systems in place that hold me accountable on consistent basis. So the game day is a leg, one of the dimensions that we measure in the YDBG. The game day is a fitness assessment every 90 days. And I love that it's every 90 days because I get to see in those windows with the choices I've made, with the things I've taken on, how is it showing up in my body in different areas, or what is that choice telling me as far as it's adding to my power or maybe not so much? And then how do I want to adjust from there? And using the app, using the Trust app and seeing week to week, what is the percentage of what I say I will do to what I actually do?
And what is that called in your world? What you say and what you actually do, what do you call that?
Integrity.
So you're saying that integrity with ourselves is one of the keys to being able to trust yourself? Wow. So that's that data. You have this data, and then you start trusting the process and trusting that data. That's what you said earlier.
Yeah.
And the third thing to ground it in reality is collective feedback.
Yep.
What does that mean to you when I say collective feedback, and how do you use it?
Yeah. So I think about the people around me that I spend the most time with who are aligned and playing for similar things, and they also have their systems and processes where they get feedback, so I can see their numbers as well, because there is a difference between healthy and unhealthy feedback. So the collective means, what is the aggregate, what's the summary, and what are the patterns of what I'm getting from people around me, both explicit and implicit, because people are giving you feedback on you all the time in body language and how they're responding to you, and in the clear things that they're saying to you. Okay. So how do I take that all in? And again, if I'm going back to, these are people who are playing for similar things up to what I'm up to and hold me in a space of love, there is some truth that's coming from each of their perspectives, especially if they're saying a lot of the same thing.
You dropped a whole lot on us there. So I want to go back and just highlight two things. One thing you said is people that are giving me feedback that are holding the space of love for me. And I want you to tie that into the distinction. You said there's a difference between healthy feedback and unhealthy. Share more about what's healthy feedback and unhealthy, because you got to be able to discern it. Otherwise, it can distort you, and how that connects to people around you who are holding a space for you.
Yes. So when I think about healthy and unhealthy feedback, one way I could break it down is where this feedback is coming from. Take a moment of discernment and assessment and understanding of that source. Does that source have their own measurements and have their own numbers I can look to as far as being held accountable consistently, like a game day and using the app, for instance? Can I look to that? And
I want to interrupt.
Yeah.
Where have you seen that in the real world? I mean, as much as I understand the benefits of counseling and therapists, how many counselors and therapists have you seen who will show you their own data about how well they're taking on what they're saying?
Yeah, I can't speak to that too in depth, but I would imagine not so much, that it's not as transparent for a number of reasons. But yeah, that's a really great.
So you said a lot there.
I know.
Look at the feedback, make sure they have their systems and numbers, and it's transparent. I'm like,
yeah.
What world are you in?
This world.
There you go, exactly. So what you're saying is that you have that as a coach.
Yes, I do, and I'm very grateful for it.
Fascinating. So let's go back to what we said. The three things that ground you in reality, and if you're not grounding yourself in reality, then you're probably in denial, pretending something's true that's really not.
Yeah.
And when you're in denial, you think something's true that's not, you don't get it. You don't get the result because you think it's true and it's not happening. Very, very unhealthy place to be. Yeah. And very confusing. So 3 things you said: checking in with yourself because you're taking time to trust yourself. You said some kind of system or data that gives you collective healthy feedback, and getting further feedback from a collective group of people who are using similar systems. And you can see that they've gotten a greater result or a powerful result as a result of trusting the process.
Yeah.
So when you put those 3 together, continue.
Okay, so when you put those 3 together, then I feel like that's the point where I pause and lean into the feedback. Even if I don't like it, which sometimes we might not. And I guess that first threshold and one great lesson for me is regardless of the feedback, even if it's healthy or unhealthy, it could be trash feedback that I'm not going to do anything with. How can I at least be grateful for it? So how do I practice that literal thank you? Thank you, because it's giving me some opportunity, right, to look at something, even if it's feedback I'm going to take or not. So thank you, and then how am I going to choose to move forward with this? And so in the case of feedback that's coming from a source that, as I said earlier, holds me in love, I trust, the summation of this person or person's character is that which I'm inspired by.
Really? That they hold themselves in love.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
That's a great
because a lot of
point.
people
Yeah.
hold me in love and you in love, and not hold themselves in love.
Right.
And that gives a different
Because
kind
of
of feedback.
codependency.
Exactly. And that's a
Yeah.
different feedback too.
When the ego wants to stay busy and do all the things.
Yeah. Because it wants to stay busy. That's correct. So wrapping this thing up, Sarah, and I talked about how trusting the process and connecting that to the feedback the process will give you, and learning how to surrender to that feedback from your coaches and the data, things like that, and using that to build that faith in you, that bond starts building. You trust the process, surrender to feedback, the faith in you goes up.
Yeah.
That whole thing right there, that's magical.
Yeah.
And that's what we're clear that if you continue on that path, everything you want to create will manifest not of your own work. It manifests off the collective, the principle, the team. And that's what makes it magical.
Yeah.
So my question for you is, how did you take that feedback that we had just in a natural conversation and apply it to your home immediately? And what do you look for in your clients when you do feedback on how they surrender? How do you teach them how to surrender to that feedback? So those are my two questions.
That's great, because our conversation did give me a really great insight and opportunity, and I was excited about it. And that's one of the things that I'm very keen on practicing as a human, but then I know it plays into my coaching because I'm willing to keep looking at this stuff. All of us are as coaches. I think that's what keeps us sharp as coaches, the fact that we want to keep our eyes open to this kind of stuff and receive feedback, be humbled by it, lean into it, surrender to it. And so I took that conversation and it made me more aware of when I do feel myself moving into that detriment space or resentment space, or this just may not be what I feel inspired to do right now, but I'm doing it because I'm running off of a code that says it needs to get done right now.
Now that you have that awareness, how do you use it? How do you discern the wisdom that comes from that awareness? So now you realize you're washing these dishes, the kids are over there playing, and you start getting in tune with how you feel about it, and where you're coming from. And what you realize is that I'm doing this because I think it needs to get done, as opposed to, do I love who I'm becoming in this moment? And does this action tie into me really capturing, imbuing, and taking on what I've created? Does it really tie into that bigger picture of who Sarah is, which is love, which is presence, which is abundance? And so when you ask that question, because I'm sure you did, what came up for you?
In some moments it's aligned, and in some moments it's not. And so how can I be more aware of the ones where it's not, and that it's okay? And so what I love about the game is it's not about being in the alignment or being in the balance all of the time. It's how am I just more aware of it, and how can I turn it around? How can I recenter? How can I get back into that this is who I am space of whatever I'm doing? And if I'm washing a dish and I realize I'm not in a joy space around it, then what does it look like to put down the dish? And it doesn't even necessarily mean the only other option is to go play with my husband and children. It could be something else. It could be go do something else with joy. But that check-in process. And I love how it's about, it's okay when the moments come up. It's what do we want to do with that now?
Choice, huh?
Yeah.
So did you have an example like that or experience like that after you reflected at all, where you're doing something you're like, and you saw that you paused or kept going?
Yeah, so we had an interesting week this past week where Matthew wasn't feeling very well. He had an immune system upgrade, as we call them in our house, rather than being sick or ill. And so with that, it meant a little bit more house management and rearing of children and taking care of things, and to just have a very loving, peaceful conversation with myself around that doesn't need to get done right now.
Wow.
What's more important right now, especially since I'm a little bit more needed, what's more important is that I rest. What's more important is that I pause right now and get to sleep early or take that time for myself in the morning and be at peace with that.
And what was the result of that? You made those choices clearly, and
I've been moving through so effortlessly, and everyone else is doing well, and Matthew's feeling better, and
and what did he say? Like the next day when you shared with me, he said Matthew came up and was like, and what did he say about how he was feeling?
so much better. Like, couldn't even believe how much better he was feeling.
And then he said some of that was impact. What part of that feeling greater was? What did he say helped him feel better? What did he say?
Me, and I wrote him a note telling him, heal, rest well, and all of that while he was sleeping. And so he said, I think it was your note.
And
so,
let's be real. I mean, Matthew's very conscious and aware.
Yeah.
That has a lot to do with it.
the energy.
Yes, because you took time to understand how to manage your energy. Now we go back to the very beginning, and you kept that energy high. That allowed the space for Matthew to move through whatever he had to move through quickly because he wasn't concerned about you,
Right.
or worried about how it's impacting you. It's like, and he's like, well, I can focus on doing what I need to do, and immediately he was back up to speed and so appreciative of himself of getting there and who you are.
Yeah.
Like you held that thing down because you stayed in touch with that balance. Wow, I love it. So anything else you want to say to cap that off? That's what the game's about.
Yeah, well, I mentioned how it transfers and translates into coaching. And so with clients, when it comes to the receiving and surrendering of feedback, what I look for is where are clients taking advantage of those opportunities when it is off, to see what the gift in that is and to see what the opportunity there is. And so when the judgment is minimized and when the recognition of, I did it this way today, at another point in time in the past, I would not have done it this way. So this combination of giving oneself space and acknowledgement for the wins. So even with myself, giving myself acknowledgement for the win of moving through a week like this week and doing it really well and feeling great overall around it. There's a time and place and space where I may not have. And so to take those moments of recognition and acknowledgement and to also just get back on track. Get back on track. That when I see that pattern of a client kind of taking the hit and getting back on track, that's a sign of taking the feedback, receiving it, surrendering to it, and implementing it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was very clear. I want to reiterate what you said. I heard gratitude.
Yeah, it's
Like
huge.
you have a lot of gratitude for even the lessons that didn't work.
Yeah.
You're like it's a lesson. And you have a lot of gratitude for the fact that you might choose not to be aligned now and getting back on track. So that alone keeps you going. Like whether you're off or on, you appreciate it.
Yeah.
Whether the lesson worked or not, you appreciate it. And that's a big piece of this game. That's why we say this game is inspired by love, accountability, and balance.
Yeah.
And you've really learned how to rep loving yourself. And the result is, Sarah stays consistent. The kids get that love. Your husband gets that love. Your clients get that love. We all get this love that Sarah has for herself. Yeah. And she's giving it to us from our overflow. That to me is sustainable.
It is.
And that to me is truly independence, or true independence, and it ties into this interdependence that's so synergistic. So I want to confirm that's who you are for me. As I experience you over and over again, I experience a woman who's just responsible for the creation of her life. Yes, and you're taking bold action, but once again, it's calculated because you're trusting yourself.
Yeah.
You're trusting the numbers and the data. You're trusting the collective, but you're taking bold action, things that your family hasn't done before, and you can see the result of your bold action. You're living this extraordinary life, and you realize that you're just at the beginning of something extraordinary. So that's my observation of you, and I'm blessed to play by your side and to have you help create this team and be an extraordinary coach. And when I'm talking to clients out there and they're coming to me and saying, asking about our program, this is what I tell them I'm 100% confident with, that I'm putting you in great hands. Right. And now they know the work you do to be able to guide them from authenticity, from vulnerability, from being it. And so I just want to acknowledge you for that and, be grateful for the fact that I get to play by your side today.
Yeah.
Thank you. So awesome. Go to YouTube and subscribe and hit like, because we're going to put out a lot of videos like this, and I guarantee you, as you watch it over and over again, you will pick up nuggets. But more importantly, your subconscious will pick it up.
Yeah.
And these things take a little while to activate. You don't have to get it right now. You don't have to get all this information.
Yeah.
But just keep watching it. That's why I say just keep watching, because the energy is real and your spirit will pick it up. And what you'll see is when you're seeing us in this relationship, you'll see a future version of yourself. That means a more loving, a more trusting, a more centered relationship within yourself and with someone else who's more loving, trusting, and centered. And it creates this thing called an extraordinary life. And that's why you're here. So YouTube, hit like, hit, watch, and just keep watching those videos over and over again. And you can also go to our website, theydbg.com, and it's theydbg.com, yourdaybalancegame.com, and just read through it. And it's going to reinforce what we said here. Sarah, is there anything else you want to recommend they do before we sign off?
No, thank you.
All
It's
right.
been awesome.
So I'm Coach Day, and this is Coach Sarah, and we're coaches in the game. I'm the architect of the game, and I like to say, remember, make every day your day. Welcome. My name is Coach Day, and I'm the architect of the Your Day Balance Game, also known as the YDBG, where the objective is to make every day your day. Now, if you really enjoyed that video, then press that button and subscribe, and also hit that notification, because every week we're going to release these videos. We can learn how to go from codependent to true independent, so you start living the life that you're truly worth. I look forward to seeing the game, and remember, make every day your day.